All right, welcome to Topeka Insiders, episode number 17. And today I have the honor of having Davis Atteberry with Davis Atteberry Coaching here with me. He's a good friend and also part of my TGN network. So, Davis, welcome.
Thank you, Chin. I appreciate you having me.
Well, so let's do this real quick. Davis is in a very, very fascinating industry besides coaching, and he plays a lot of golf. Is that right?
It is. I'm around the sport of golf a lot, so my time playing it has lessened than what it used to, yet I still appreciate the time I spend around the sport.
That's amazing. So golfing, I would say, is probably one of the most popular sports in America, right? Or around the world.
Since COVID hit and golf really boomed when that hit. When Tiger came around, you had the Tiger effect. Everyone wanted to get in golf because Tiger Woods played golf. And then when COVID hit and everyone was forced to stay home, golf courses were one of the few things that actually remained open. And so a lot of people got introduced to the game of golf or reintroduced to it if maybe it was a long drought that they had played. So golf is one of the booming sports right now, especially here in Topeka, in Kansas. So, and I expect it to continue on.
That's exciting. I did not know any of that stuff until you just told me that. Okay. So let's go down a memory lane real quick, Davis, and bring us to that point where you picked up your very first club and you swung. What got you started on that?
I was introduced to golf through my dad and grandpa. First set of clubs, I had a plastic set that was with a plastic ball that had at a young age. But the first real set I remember going out to the golf course, that experience, I was around 8, 9 years old. And I remember getting on the golf course and again, playing the Lake Shawnee here in town, that I remember feeling like the greens were so big and it was just this big landscape. And it was just this small little part of the course that, again, now that I walk on today, I can reflect back on. But yeah, 8, 9, I played, got into it competitively around the age of 12 as I played other sports, soccer and basketball, and ran track. I had this desire, had this interest in golf, though, that kept me coming back to it and started spending more time in that sport than my other ones, and got my first job around the sport. And yeah, it's been an important part of my life.
That's amazing. Thank you so much for sharing that. So what was that one thing that you feel like kept you in the game of golf, like over the years?
The thing that you can do with the game of golf is you can go out there and connect with yourself, or you can go and connect with other people. And you really make up whatever the experience is that you have. So for myself in my high school days, that was used as a sense of peacetime for me, as a way to take my mind off of what was happening in my real life. Mm-hmm. And I could go into those moments of connection there. And then as I got older, I just learned and was introduced to different environments around the game, different activities around it, more work meetings, social meetings, things like that. Competitive, again, my own career as I tried to go a little bit further with it. But the landscape around just myself and my evolution around the game really kind of stopped when I got to college. And then it was on like a 3-4 year hiatus.
Yeah.
And then I got back into it, which I'm sure we'll get into.
That's awesome. Well, so you played a lot of like competitive games, I'm assuming, over the years, right? And can you bring us down the memory lane once again? Was there a game or a moment where you feel like, hey, this is kind of like a make it or die moment? You have one of those moments where you can think of like that one swing, be like, well, shoot, I made it, did it. It was not a splice. I did it.
I have a moment in high school where I remember I was an average high school golfer.
Come on,
no win. There was no winning of tournaments for me in high school. I took second place at one. I was hype about it. Took third, and so I was competitive though, and I tried. I just again can reflect back on it now and look at myself, and my skill level was average, and I can look at what I did and my practice that I did, my practice ethics, and how I spent my time. It makes sense of why I was average, because I, again, didn't put the necessary work in to get to the skill level I wanted to get to there.
Right.
And so, yeah, that I'm in high school, I'm playing summer golf tournament and I'm in a match play tournament. I'm the 32nd seed competing against the number one seed.
Mhm.
And going into it, it's just a lot of good lucks, just
Yeah,
a lot of people just saying like, hope you don't get beat too
but
bad.
you're having a good time, I'm assuming,
Enjoying
right?
it,
Okay,
100%.
good,
I'm
good.
going
I
out
think that's
there,
what was most important thing,
putting
right?
myself out there in a competitive environment just to again test myself.
Yes.
That was the purpose of it. And that's what golf does. It's whether you're in it for a competitive tournament or you're going out there on the weekend, it's a test to yourself of some sort, whether you know it or not. And so again, for myself in that moment, I recognized, oh, this is a big test. And I was happy. I was myself in that moment. I took down the number one seed as that 32nd seed. And again, as a moment that sticks with me, I was just like, okay, I did what I wanted to do in that moment. It was not about playing his game or doing things because he was doing them. I just stuck to, again, what it was that I knew I could do in that moment. And that's what led me to it. And then
That's amazing. So did you mentally get into a zone or type of thing that you were able to kind of play your best game, just take them down?
yeah, to say mentally I was in a zone then, no, I had just created a comfortable environment around me. I remember I had invited one of my high school friends who was not a golfer, he was a tennis player, to ride along in the cart with me that day.
Mhm.
And I, again, no, not unknowingly then, knowingly now, I was creating a comfortable environment for myself to where in between shots, my nervous system was able to stay in this down regulated state versus being high and tight in between shots, getting in my head, thinking about things, again, being able to actually be in the present moment to where then again, I could just be and do versus being three shots ahead, which plagues a lot of golfers.
That's amazing. That's amazing. In my entire lifetime, I've only played golf one time. If I count the one time I went to Top Golf, so twice.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So I can imagine all the stuff that you had to go through to be able to take down that opponent. I believe that the final shot was probably the best shot of all, right? Do
Yeah.
you remember the final shot? Like how far away from the
Yeah, I mean, I remember that last putt going in and then realizing, yeah, it's over like this because that's the thing about golf is once
yeah.
that last putt drops, it's
Yeah.
the round is over for the day. And I remember that sigh of relief hitting and being able to feel that in that moment there. So yeah, and again, understanding how in that moment that I again my game evolved and hit plateaus to again to where I am now. Again, there's the journey of what is my golf game, and everyone experiences within their own games of it.
That's amazing. We're gonna go there just a little bit. So, well, Davis, that was a phenomenal story. Walk us through how you got with the PGA. What was your experience with that? Because I remember you telling me a little bit about the PGA experience. You were affiliated with the PGA,
Mhm.
professional golfing. I mean, I think a lot of younger people want to be some form and shape associated with the PGA. Maybe could be their career pursuit. I might not be a professional player for PGA, but I had a couple of friends that work for PJ on the marketing side or different things like that, just to learn the professional golfing side of things.
Mhm.
So can you just kind of share a couple of things? Maybe that would inspire some of the younger viewers who are
Yeah,
watching this.
definitely.
Yeah.
And so from when I was in, there's two different avenues to get into it. You have professional golfers, and then you have your head golf professionals.
Mhm.
You have your people that are out there playing competitive golf, and then you have your people that are running your golf shops and country clubs around that everyone plays. And so I was in the PGA program when I was working here at Lake Shawnee Golf Course in town as the assistant pro. And part of the requirement of the job is to get your PGA certifications. And so I was involved in that program, going through the steps of it while working the full-time job that is were my requirements and also trying to grow my coaching business along it.
Wow.
And so through the PGA course that you get introduced to the course management side of things, your tournament operations, your golf fleet management, again, that business stuff. You also get slightly introduced into teaching and coaching early on. That's kind of changed now where you can go into that option a little bit faster. But so I'm getting into it. I'm creating my own coaching business and I'm taking in this education. And I was stalled out on the business side because I had no desire to work at a golf shop. I had a strong desire to teach and coach. And so I took this information that they gave me and then I was spending majority of my other time, instead of doing the education work for the program, I was doing more teaching and coaching certifications. I was investing my time going and shadowing other coaches and trainers and learning from them, getting again more real time, real world shadowing experiences instead of doing some online work for something I just wasn't really thrilled to do.
I
And
see.
so it got put on the back burner there.
Okay.
And then when I left my job, I had a decision. I was like, do I continue paying for this certification to do it? And I had a decision. I was like, the initials next to my name were not as important as getting this real world, again, doing what I really wanted to do.
That's
So-
amazing. So that's kind of like this, so that little passion inside of you, or I would call it a little calling inside
Yeah.
of you. Be like, hey, I want to go into the coaching, and then that's how I and Davis met, and he was
Mhm.
invited to our professional networking event, and immediately I found this tremendous talent he had for coaching, and then the calm voice, of course, he has. If you guys are looking for a caddy, I think you're a pretty good caddy. Are you?
I have experience caddying. My coaching goes into that, and so yeah, if you are interested in that, let me know, and
Oh.
we can have a conversation. But what to just kind of finish on what I was talking there,
Yeah.
Chin, is it goes into, do you know what mountain you're climbing? And sometimes we go spend years and years climbing a mountain we're not actually thrilled to be climbing. Sometimes we have to, that high school is that mountain when we're younger, and then
Yes.
college may be that mountain. Well, sometimes we get pushed into some career paths, relationships, what may it be,
Right.
and we find ourselves on this mountain, and it's a tough climb. Like, why are we running into all these hazards and speed bumps while we're on this thing? And it's just not feeling fluid for a lot of people.
Yes.
And you realize, oh, I can stop and pause real quick. I can look and see there's some other summits out there. Maybe those are what I actually want to be summiting versus this one that I'm on. And that's what I was facing when I was at the golf course, when I was working in that golf shop, was that I wasn't wanting to climb that specific mountain anymore. So I chose to step off of it and then find the mountain that suited me, that resonated with me the most, which in turns was creating my own coaching business in the realm that I want to. And so now I'm climbing a mountain that I am thrilled to, and I'm going to climb it. And I'm going to have other mountains I'm going to climb in my life too. And that's the thing about life, is you just climb that mountain, you celebrate it,
Right.
and then you find that next mountain you're going to climb, that next challenge that you're going to do in this time that we have here.
This is incredible. So, Davis, let's go a little bit deeper into that topic you're talking about, because I'm assuming a lot of people in life, they felt they're stuck somewhere. They're stuck maybe halfway up a hill, up a mountain, whatever. So how did you find the pathway, or courage, or even the means of coming downhill from that mountain that you were not supposed to climb, versus, hey, look, I see there, that's the option. How did you regroup yourself to go down and then go up a different path?
Yeah. Because there were plenty of moments where I felt like I was stuck and just things were not moving. I refer to it a lot as just living in a loop.
Yes.
The daily habits between myself and my partner, and just what's happening. And again, just it was the status quo,
Right.
and we were comfortable with it. We didn't want to disrupt it. Well, I
Right.
learned that that's our ego that doesn't want that disrupted. Yet there's this little simmering thing inside of me that wanted more.
Right.
But that ego had covered it up so much because it was comfortable. It created something from what I had compared to what I had before in my life. And so it was cool with it. But inside of me, that little simmer, that soul purpose was trying to express itself. And so what I had to do in that moment was I had to say, again, take that reflection in that mirror and say, is this what I want? And then answer that question. And what I want is, what does 5 years look like from now? What does 10 years look like from now? And asking myself those questions. Now, early on, I asked myself those questions and I ran from them.
Mhm.
I didn't answer them.
You didn't have the courage at that time.
No, not at all.
Okay.
And so again, it was this process that I continued to take. And during my professional development, I was put into and finally faced with, you have to do personal development.
Mhm.
the professional development was all just, it just was out of reach.
Right.
It was the information was there, but the actions, the things that was coming wasn't happening. And it was because that personal development was missing.
Mhm.
And so in my connections and what I've learned is there's life outside of Kansas.
Yes.
There's people outside of Topeka. So in 2022, I went down to Austin, Texas for a summit of coaches. There's around 70 to 80 coaches there. A lot of them were online coaches. Most of them were in the fitness industry or health industry, but you had coaches of all different varieties. Those people who were trying to learn how to do what they do online from wherever they want. And so I was watching and learning from them of how can I apply this to golf coaching.
I see.
So
Wow.
I was learning from this coaching program called the Strong Coach, and they were holding a summit down in Austin, Texas, in this 2022. So we're a year and a half outside into COVID at this
Right.
time.
I see.
Not a lot of social gatherings are still being promoted at this time. Well, this is a moment where they're saying, hey, come down to Austin. They have a summer park rented out, cabins, bunk beds, and we're there for 3 days. And I thought this was a professional development. I'm gonna learn how to grow my business.
Mhm.
That was 10% of it.
Okay.
90% of it was how to connect with yourself, how to grow yourself, how to talk to your inner child, and then have conversations and learn that those are what will help get you through those little bumps in the roads, those hard moments on the mountains, when you actually go in and have conversations with the real blocks in your life. And it could be different things for different people. In
Right.
my scenario, it was having a dad that was in prison and having that from age 13 to 19 and stories around that. And but you could have someone who had their parents get divorced
Mhm.
and maybe they're having troubles in relationships. Well,
Right.
if we haven't go into those moments, those stories, then they keep on replaying and could be causing us to run into our problems. So I was exposed to this practice there in Austin of how to go into myself to then reflect what again I can learn from it versus just living what had happened to me. And so I was very much I'd been into mental health before I got into golf.
Mhm.
And so this work really hit me. It really stuck with me. And because I was like, oh, like using this with past clients, I'm just running scenarios through my head of like, what can this practice do for other people if this is just what it's doing for me right here in this moment? So talking about the courage for it,
Right.
it was continuing to practicing, having silence and stillness with myself to be like, hey, Davis, what are you feeling right now? And being okay answering that question because my body was physically in a fight or flight mode permanently because of the past stories that were running through my head. And so my nervous system was so locked up, my breathing patterns were dysregulated unknowingly to me.
Right.
And that's the thing about the breath is that it's an unconscious thing. Yet when we bring consciousness to it, it can be so powerful in our favor. And so I learned how to regulate my breath. I learned how to create a parasympathetic lifestyle, meaning my habits around me weren't causing me to get upregulated. I stopped waking up at 4 a.m. to work out,
Wow.
even though I thought that's what all the high performers did. But waking up at 4 a.m. to work out when I'm operating on 4 hours of sleep did me absolutely no good.
Right.
And to me, being healthy at the time was working out and a little bit into eating real food,
Mhm.
eating protein was about my terms of what being healthy was. I disregarded the sleep conversations. I disregarded a lot of the other conversations because working out was my way of clearing the thoughts.
I see.
And so I learned this new method now of clearing thoughts and moving through those. So now I can actually use working out to train my body. Now I can start to learn how to sleep 8 hours and utilize my time in the morning. Again, I can still prime my body, but I don't have to punish myself right away.
Mhm.
I have this new relationship with working out, just like I have a new relationship with golf through this practice, just like I have a new relationship with myself and my partner.
Right. This is incredible. So the technique that you got from that summit, or from that seminar
Mhm.
really got a lot of strength and encouragement, or I would say the means of kind of talking to yourself with the inner voice, right?
Yeah.
So I'm assuming you have been using that to coach your clients or cope with your clients' situations. Can you share a couple of instances where you came across a client situation, you were able to use that technique to get them unstuck?
Yeah, the self-talk conversation is a common one. And
Which is not so common to a lot of people. Is that
correct,
right?
correct. Yes, they until they recognize what it is that's happening there, they just think it's the normal. And for example, of
Can I share this real quick, Davis?
go
Didn't mean
go
to cut
for
you
it.
off.
No, you're
So
good.
what was that famous quote you said about beliefs? Something about story. Like a belief is a story that you tell yourself. How did you say that?
So the
What is a belief?
what is a belief? A belief is can set as a thought pattern.
Okay.
A belief could be a thought pattern. Some would say belief is what you would know to be true.
Right.
But again, is that really, that's all per person? What is
Right.
per each
Everybody's got
person's
different
truth?
belief.
So what I would say is, what is a story? And that goes into what is mindset.
Yes, there you go. There you go. That's what I was getting at.
Mhm.
So mindset. Okay. What
What is
exactly is a mindset?
mindset?
Your definition.
And that's it. I'm glad you brought this up, because the enlifted definition of mindset is the most simple definition I've come across.
Mhm.
Look on Google, you can get a page full of different definitions. And their definition is mindset is the story that you tell yourself. So
Guys, look that up.
one layer deeper, mindset is the story that you tell yourself about yourself. And so again, we wake up in the morning and we are telling ourselves some sort of story. Whether we like it or not, it is occurring in our mind. And again, this became real noticeable. I was taught the rule of threes by a coach of mine, Brooks
Mhm.
Meadows. And he taught me, and the body can go 3 years, or sorry, can go 3 decades without movement. So, laying in bed sedentary, we've seen the people 600 pound shows, like you can go years without movement. So you can go 3 decades without movement,
Okay.
but you can only go 3 weeks without food. So if I'm contributing, what's more important, a workout or food? My food for the day and controlling that is more important than the workout for the day.
Interesting.
And so we go further, the body can only go 3 days without water or sleep. And so again, what's more important, a workout or water or sleep?
Right.
And so I start to look at these. Well, water and sleep, of course. If the body can only go 3 days without it, that's what is more important to give it.
Right.
The body can only go 3 minutes without a breath.
So breathing is more important than water.
Breathing could be again more important. And how often are we breathing? And so we talked about breathing patterns early and being upregulated and downregulated. If we're unconsciously breathing in a poor pattern, we're just putting rep after rep into our body of something that could potentially be harmful, and that could potentially soft talk. We're gonna get into that later. Again,
This is
we'll
cool.
scratch that out. It is harmful to the body.
Yes.
That upregulated breathing living there is harmful. It's useful when you're being chased down by a tiger, or if you're going to go run a 100-meter sprint. When you're in your meeting, when you're having your conversation with your wife or kids, you should not be breathing from your mouth and up in your chest and shoulders. We're meant to be breathing low and slow and long. Low and slow, meaning from our diaphragm coming in and out through our nose. And so we have our rule of threes here. So we have our 3 decades of no movement. We have 3 days of no food, no sleep.
Right.
We have, or sorry, 3 weeks, no food, no sleep, 3 days of no water.
No sleep.
Yeah,
There you go.
let me just restart this, like when you start, so we can make it clear.
Yeah.
So 3 decades without movement. We can go 3 weeks without food. We can go 3 days without water or sleep. We can go 3 minutes without breathing. We can go 3 seconds without thoughts coming into our head.
Okay.
So the thoughts are what started all. And that's what helped me get through my past stuck stories. And that's what really led me into this next level of my coaching career, working with golfers and non-golfers, because it starts with the thoughts. What they do before the golf ball starts with a thought. What they do in the morning starts with a thought. How they prepare their dinner starts with a thought. So again, getting people to understand that the thoughts are going to happen. And so we have this power to choose what we think. So Alan Watts has a quote: when you learn to think about your thinking, you become alive in a new way. And again, I teach people how to think about their thinking through a methodology that is the Unlifted process, and my coaching. Going further into it, we can go into specific healthy holistic habits and other things to, again, get them to where they're trying to go. Some people may not feel like they have things to work through.
Right.
So, and for that person, it's like, cool, where are you trying to go? What is it that you're trying to get to? And how can you get there in a streamlined way? And so I think some people get turned off by the mindset conversation. They're like, oh no, I don't have anything to work through. Men especially, we're just so used to shrugging things off and normalizing the hard stuff.
Right.
And again, it's called stonewalling emotions.
They just run from it, right?
Whether it's running from it, it's avoiding it. It's what it's doing. It's building up this invisible wall here, and or you can envision as a ceiling, and you have no space around you. And eventually that you're going to get that feeling, and it's going to happen when you're not wanting to. So you recognize when things are off. Typically the body's going to send you signals. Any form of disease started with a state of dis-ease. And so if we again look at the words that we use, then we can understand that, well, my ignoring states of dis-ease in my life, and what happens if I keep this. So earlier question of that moment of how I knew, it's like I asked myself that question. I was posed to it by my coach. That's when I finally answered it, as what does your life look like if you continue on this path? And it was dark.
Yeah.
It was dark.
Thank you for sharing that.
That was necessary to be able to see how much brightness I could create, because that's how I lived. I lived in a state of not being able to really see a future, because I was so caught up in just all these past stories in my head. Woe is me, and just thinking about the problems going on.
Right.
So I learned how to quiet down the voice of the problems, start looking at what I do want, and again, start creating action actually in my life versus talking about things.
That's incredible. And then the rules of three, that was incredible. I hope you guys would have utilized that principle along the way. So Davis, go back to that question I was asking you before we really delve super deep into this. So give us like one example where you had a client, they were just really stuck. You were able to use this mindset storytelling to get them unstuck, and they've like achieved something great.
Specifically again, because I worked with a lot of golfers. So let's talk golf.
Let's talk golf.
I had a 20 handicap coming to me. So for those that are new to golf, 20 handicap meaning they're typically shooting 20 strokes more than what your really good golfers would be shooting.
Okay.
It's also where about 80% of the golfers are, like that's where the majority are. They're around 20 handicaps. So a lot of the golfers around Topeka are at that skill level. So getting people to understand what your realistic expectations are has been big. So I had this client that was struggling. They couldn't break 90. They were just at this point. We had worked together for one time previously. They came to me for a swing lesson where we just looked at technique. And this was a couple years ago. So a couple years later, they still hadn't gotten past this thing. Well, I have this new skill in my tool belt here. And they come to me, talk to me about, well, I still can't get off the tee and I can't break 90. I'm like, okay, cool. So instead of me watching him hit balls, watching him bang ball after ball, and whether it hit it good and just tell me about his problems or whatever it is,
that's so fun.
I had him write down what he experienced last time he was on the golf course.
Like literally writing down.
I had a notebook and a pen with me, and I said, in 4 sentences, write down what you experienced on your golf course. He wrote more than 4 sentences. He had about 6 to 7 sentences on this page. It's like, cool. How's it feel having that done? And he's like, okay, I guess. And I was like, cool. Again, it wasn't about me. I was just, the method works itself.
Okay, okay,
And so I was like, awesome. So now what I want you to do is right underneath that, I want you to tell me about where it is, what is it that you want to do with this game? Where do you want to take your golf game? Not about what he was experiencing in that moment, not about the tee shots or his score, but just what do you want to do with this game over the next 5 years?
okay.
And so I had him think big picture, 5 years. What is it? And he wrote it out. And I was like, cool. Have you ever thought about your game 5 years from now? He's like, no. I was like, cool. Most people haven't. Most people don't think 5 years ahead. A lot of people don't have goals. Again,
When it
conversation.
came to playing golf, right? Is always
Yeah, I mean,
okay,
just in
okay.
general
In
there.
general, okay.
But yeah, so again, for him, he had never written out what it is he wants to do with this game. He pays money to play it each week when he goes
Right.
out, buys clubs. He has an investment into it, but
Mhm.
it's been unclear of what it is that he's doing out there.
Okay,
And so again, in it, he talks about having fun, enjoying time with his buddies, enjoying time playing with his kids while he's out there. And there was one sentence about shooting under 90. So
okay,
and so it was a very small snippet about what the game of golf is to him. And so again, we're taking this thing that was very big picture and we're shrinking it down. So by him then writing this out what he wants, we can start to make clear of like, okay, well, how important is getting off the tee for you based on this? And he's like, I can still learn how to play golf around this. And so again, he's learning how to create more power in the situation. Again, I've had him write down what he's been experiencing, and I asked him to write down where it is he wants to go. By now, we've hit some golf balls in between the things, just again, chit chatting. I'm not giving him technique things because again, my goal isn't to change his golf swing. I'm there to again get him to recreate the perception he has around his situation.
I see.
Not trying, it wasn't about giving an answer.
The mindset thing.
He has the answers. I'm going to ask him a lot of questions to get him to answer his own questions
Okay,
at the end of the day.
cool.
And so we go through the process. He's feeling comfortable as he's hitting, and we go through the 4-step process of him reading it out loud and breathing. And we again get the body in line with the words that he speaks, with the low and slow breathing after each period in that sentence. And he forms a connection with this story that he just wrote. And so now he has more believability that he's actually doing something that's going to create greatness over the next 5 years versus that immediate satisfaction, especially golfers really look for in that next shot, that next score.
That makes a lot of
And
sense.
so how do we remove ourselves from that immediate satisfaction to more long term? And again, I had the reflections in my own game around that to change, but again, 2 weeks later, he shot 85.
He never imagined that, I'm assuming,
Another
right?
2 weeks later, he broke 80. 10 strokes less than he's ever shot before. We didn't work on technique. Again, I didn't give him I wasn't cheerleading him. I wasn't saying raw. And that's what a lot of coaches do. They turn into cheerleaders for their clients. And that's what a lot of clients want. They
On the
want
spot, yeah.
they
I see what
want
you're
they
saying.
want the cheerleaders. They want them to say, give me that motivation. Tell me I'm doing something right. Tell me that it's the situation that's at fault, not me. And I make it clear with my clients that I'm your corner man, not your cheerleader. I'm there to support you. I'm there to tell you what's necessary for you to hear in that moment to get you into that next spot.
So essentially what you did is you created the system, or you use your method to turn himself into you empowered himself to become a better player without himself knowing that. That's incredible.
And then afterwards, I choose to reflect on that. So again, it's 2 weeks later after he had that first low. And so it's now about a month later after our session. And I'm just like, what's different for you? What feels different? Getting him to start acknowledging and recognizing how his body feels out on the golf course now compared to it used to. How does he feel before he even shows up to the course? Is he feeling jittery and nervous about what's going to happen?
I see.
How's he feeling afterwards? Is in a good calm mood when he gets home to his family or whoever, or is he letting what happened on the course affect now the rest of his time?
That's incredible. So under this video, I'm going to post Davis's contact information so you guys can reach out to maybe pick him up as a coach or learn more, just reach out. So basically, for this specific client, you turned this audacious goal that he had, or he didn't even know he had, into some baby steps for him, and then you empowered him.
Created clarity.
There you go.
We created clarity, and when the thoughts are in the head, they're swirling around infinite, and that's what these ideas are around our golf game. It's like we have an idea of what we want to be. Well, cool. Let's turn that idea into something more finite, and that's happens when we get the words on paper.
Right.
And the difference between a goal and a dream is that a goal is written down and a dream is kept in the head. And so when we can be part of the 3% and actually write down our goals, which that's what it is, there's a 30-year study going on, and that's what they find. 3% of people write down their goals. And so again, now let's take that and write down our goals and supercharge it by, again, looking at what words we're using. I don't want to gain weight this year.
I was just gonna go there. Okay, tell us your crazy technique that you share with us.
Yeah.
Okay, so I don't want to gain weight. Go down a path. Let's do it.
So
you gotta pay attention to this.
If someone's goal is don't want to gain weight, I'll ask them, okay, what do you want? And so asking them that question though, just like initially, is tough. So I'll say, scratch out the don't of that sentence, put in do. And so I'll ask them,
okay,
say that sentence again.
Okay,
I do want to gain weight. Well, no, I disagree with that.
Right.
Like, cool. Well, our reticular activating system, this function in our brain, doesn't recognize negative. So when we say I don't want to gain weight, it hears I do want to gain weight, and it's going to pick up evidence to start looking at ways to help you gain weight and to make you seem like that's going to be true. And that's what this function in our brain does. And so we can train our reticular activating system. Well, it's not that we want to gain weight. So we made that clear when we asked that client to say that sentence of I do want to, yeah, well, what do you want? Well, I want to lose weight. Maybe that's what the sentence is.
Okay.
And so they write that sentence down. And again, what is those words that they use? Those are the right answers. So yeah, it's not about me and I have, it's like yes and coaching is what I do. And I just pull on threads. So okay, if you want to lose weight, why? So we get deeper into it. We peel the onion. So why do you want to lose weight? Well, so I can play golf easier, be more pain-free on the golf course, and I can have more energy after my rounds.
Okay.
Yeah. So you want to lose weight because you want to enjoy your rounds of golf more and have more energy after your rounds. Yeah, that's good. Well, what does that bring you? And so I ask them this, what happens if you have a month of doing that? Well, then I'm able to show up really positively for my family. I can be happy during my days at my job versus feeling like I'm dreading it. I get home from the day feeling like I'm accomplished versus what the heck just happened. Waking up in the morning ready to go versus that dread or rush feeling.
Yeah.
And so by, again, getting into those because statements and the whys and the hows, now what was this initial goal of I don't want to gain weight to a very loose goal of I want to lose weight to I am, again, we're just sticking with the losing weight. I am losing weight because I am wanting to change my energy levels in my activities, which brings me more positivity in all these other places in my life.
Right.
And you're letting those be the images that we look at versus that initial thing of losing weight. And so again, what helps with losing weight? Well, adding movement, and that movement is a great thing. Nutrition, we'll go back to our rules of three.
Right.
Our sleep, our hydration, our movement, and our food. That's going to affect your weight. So my goal is to have 5 minutes of movement a day, have one home cooked meal a day, to have 6 hours of sleep a day, to have half my body weight in ounces of water drank a day. And so now those are the goals. You doing those will get you that losing weight, yet you're not staring at that thing that said losing weight.
I see.
And so again, if I'm looking at this goal of, I'm wanting to lose weight, again, what imagery, what pixelation occurs in the head with that? What past stories of failed attempts at losing weight come to mind that people may have with it? And insert any goal there is there. Why haven't you achieved the goal you set for yourself? I don't know. If you're curious about that and want to have a conversation, message me. I'd be very interested to explore it. And there's a chance that it wasn't written down, and so it was just a dream, or it was written down and the words you used were full of conflict language versus architect language. So that word don't is a negation. The opposite of a negation is an affirmation, which we've heard of.
With a positive.
Positive statement. So the
Yes.
negation is the negative of the affirmation. And that's what a lot of people talk with. They talk about the don'ts, the won'ts, the can'ts. And that's what their vocabulary is filled with. And
That's
so
correct.
again, one of the pillars of conflict language. You also have soft talk. Things like, I think I will be at dinner tomorrow. I will be at dinner tomorrow. I maybe will achieve that goal.
I will achieve that goal.
I will achieve that goal. So anytime we have this, again, golf related, I think I can hit it over the water. I can hit it over the water. You know, I think I can set up and be confident. I can set up and be confident. So how are these internal dialogues and external dialogues, the words we think and the words we speak? So again, that's where it is. So we have this soft talk language, this kind of, sort of, possibly, try, think, all of these words that just, it's fluff.
Yes.
They're scapegoats for us. If we don't accomplish it, well, we had some soft language around it.
Yeah.
So the opposite of soft talk
Right.
in the architect language is solid talk. And the way you get rid of it is just by scratching it out. You eliminate it. Just
Right.
get rid of those words. Perhaps I'll be under par next year. You know,
That was gold, Davis.
And-
That was gold.
and just to wrap up on
But a culture was built around it though, or has been built around those soft words.
Yeah.
Right. How many
Mhm.
people, let's say, for example, Davis, let's say, for example, you invite somebody out for a party. How often do you hear like, oh, I'll try my best to be there.
Mhm.
Then we all knew.
Yeah.
They're probably not gonna be there.
Yeah.
Right. 90% of the time.
Yep, client calls, right? And that's where I was challenged when I first learned this stuff is I take it out of text messages and take it out of emails. And when I started to reread my text messages, like, oh, I had the word might in there, try, perhaps. I had 3 soft talk words in this one sentence. I started taking those out, and
Because you're
what
conscious
happened?
about it, right? And
I'm
then you
conscious.
actually, the
And-
same thing you initially talked about, you made awareness of those things and then you worked on it.
Mhm.
Okay.
Exactly.
It's not overnight, right?
No, it takes action though. And what I learned a term, it's called nescience. I don't know if we've talked about this, but it gets forgotten about. It's really just it hasn't been used in the English language for years.
Mhm.
And another word has been used instead of it. And a word that gets used instead of it is ignorance.
Okay.
And so what nescience is nescience is the making of a mistake because you didn't have information or knowledge about something. Ignorance is making a mistake and you had that information and knowledge about something. So when I was in high school and in college and making the mistakes I was making then, I was nescient to a lot of things. And so just my physical health, I was nescient to the idea of the oils that I was using when I cooked with, and what they did to my body. I was nescient to it.
Right.
I learned, oh, canola oil and vegetable oil are what cause inflammatory reactions in the body when you consume it. And so then it became ignorance if I chose to consume that because I knew it then at that point. And so I learned that, oh, I've just been nescient to a lot of things, and that's helped me in my journey of growth, and that I'm not coming down so harsh on myself for not knowing things.
Right.
Again, I talked about how there's so much stuff out of Kansas earlier. And so again, even to this day, I learn more. And that's the cool thing about social media, you know, is that you can see a lot than what we would typically be exposed to. But
Right.
again, we're also being shown so many more images and pixelations in our eyes than we're ever supposed to even be developed for.
Right.
And so how do we slow this stuff down? how do we quiet our inside? How do we quiet the system to be able to go into creation mode? To, again, be present with our family or ourselves, to focus in on it, and versus feeling we have to use these outside agents to quiet things down, to numb ourselves out to it. Understanding that we actually have this thing that is our body that can control a lot of this stuff. And when our body is working properly, our mind can work properly. And then again, we're doing more of what our sole purpose is on those two things.
That's incredible. Davis, a couple more things you want to share with us before we wrap it up? That has been one of the best interviews I've had, and then he has dropped so much gold information here.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for
again.
I mean, of course, we have been me the business
Yeah.
partners, we have been spoiled listening to Davis outside of this podcast platform for quite some time, and I personally have learned a lot from him. So,
Yeah.
a couple things you want to share?
Yeah, the question I get a lot is, okay, I work with golfers and I also do work with non-golfers, again, because this work is universal in that our story that we have about ourselves is in different areas. So the story that we have about our golf game, the story that we have about our health, the story that we have about our relationship. And so we all have stories, and the process of story work is going in and again creating the script that we want to be telling ourselves, that we can continue to live our lives the way we want to, versus living a life where life is happening to us. We start living a life that's happening by us. And so some people are okay with living a life that's happening to them. And those people are the ones that have those language patterns that we talked about. They probably have those upregulated breathing patterns that we talked about. Maybe they were nescient to the point till they heard it here.
Right.
And that's okay.
That'd be wonderful.
It's
That'd be
okay.
wonderful. Yes.
But now the question is what do they do after they've heard this? Do they take little steps of messaging out for help or researching more on their own? Or do they ignore what they've heard today and continue being drowned out by the stories that they're telling them?
We'll have a choice.
And
yeah,
again, that's where I was for a couple. I let the things drown the good things out for a couple years until it just got so loud where I was just like, no more. And
Yeah.
I started taking those action steps for myself. But I'll leave it with the definition of the victim mentality. All those things, the language patterns, it's all up to people who have the victim mentality, and we all have it. We all have it part of ourselves. Some people's are louder than others, though. And so when we can understand that it is just a thought pattern, and again, you mentioned it earlier, it's been instilled in us.
Yeah.
It's just and so it's up to us, and what my role as a leader that I'm starting for my family, and how it ripples out. I'm starting a new culture. I'm starting a culture that is one where we speak about ourselves with architect language versus conflict language, that we live our stories the way we want to versus living them like we think we have to. And so starts with getting rid of the victim mentality. And so if you're listening to this, write it down, because you remember 30% of what you hear, 50% of what you write, and 80% of what you share or teach. So write it down. You remember it 50% more. Share it with someone, teaches someone 80% more. So with the definition of the victim mentality here, the definition of victim mentality is an acquired personality trait where a person tends to regard himself or herself as the victim of the negative actions of others, even in the absence of clear evidence. The victim mentality depends on a habitual thought process and attributions. So you can pause that, you can rewind that. The victim mentality is an acquired personality trait where a person tends to regard himself or herself as the victim of the negative actions of others, whether they happened or not. They perceive stories. Things get dramatized in our head, especially when it's stuff from long ago. But the feelings in the body are like they're still there today when we think about them.
Yes.
And that's why we stiff arm those emotions away from us. So instead of feeling like we got to stiff arm these stories of hurt, haunted, and annoyed, we can learn to go into it with me by their side. We go into the cave, we slay the dragon, we walk out with the elixir. And so when they can do that, then they can then live whatever hero's journey that they're meant to live, because they're not being held back by these past limiting stories and beliefs. So we cut the anchors and we use them as stepping stools as we, again, move forward in our life.
That's incredible. I'm speechless now, Davis. That
Man.
was awesome. That was so awesome. Well, Davis, thank you so much for your time. This
Thank
is
you, Chen.
incredible interview here. Like I said, I will post Davis' contact information below this video. And thanks again.
Yes, look forward to the next one.
Thank you guys. Thank you for watching.
Thank you.